Hey guys, Mark from SoundPure here again, and today I'm excited to be back in the control room of the studio to go through another quick gear tip for you. And this one is sort of going to be a basic overview of parallel compression and how it can really add some punch and excitement to your tracks. Parallel compression is a trick that's been in every audio engineer's handbook for years and years and years. It is a really cool thing to really just kind of coax some life out of maybe a boring, dull song, or kind of add more emotion and movement to an otherwise kind of bland mix. As with all recording things, it can definitely be a rabbit hole, so we won't do too much of a deep dive here today. Just going to show kind of a basic, common example of how parallel compression can be used, maybe a brief explanation of what it is. We're going to be showing an example on a drum bus. So parallel compression on a drum bus can be great for really just adding movement and kind of air and lift and just kind of really making the drums almost sound explosive. It really helps in a transition from a verse that might be just kind of chugging along to the point where you fade in the parallel compression drum bus on the chorus and you just are exploded with excitement. So let me go through the settings that we are going to be messing with on the compressor here. In this case, we're going to be using our trusty Foot Audio P3S stereo compressor. This thing is kind of a sleeper. It is a total secret weapon and what we call quote-unquote Swiss Army knife of sound. It can do everything from the punchy, gluey SSL API 2500 style compression, and with a couple knob switches and button modes, you can actually get more of that kind of gooey Fairchild compression as well. So before you start slamming things with your parallel compressor, what you're going to want to do is take all of your individual drum tracks and send them to a drum bus, or kind of like a master drum group. And from there, you'll probably want to get a close to finished mix already with the drums as they are. So have your EQ and any preliminary compression kind of already ready to go, and this is going to be kind of the sweetening sauce. So I'm going to go through the settings that I'm going to be tweaking here and just kind of show you what to listen for as you watch me move these knobs. So first thing, the ratio. We have this pretty much maxed out on the 8:1. You're going to want your ratio pretty high and pretty aggressive for this style of parallel compression. It just really makes it audible, really aggressive, and just kind of explosive. In fact, on the foot compressor, since I'm more familiar with this drum source and how it reacts with this compressor, I might dial it back a little bit. You still get that really nice kind of natural distortion and richness from it. One thing you're going to pay attention to is the makeup gain. I cannot stress this enough to a lot of engineers just starting out. This can be the biggest kind of psychoacoustic trick to your ears if you're not careful. Our ears will gravitate towards whatever is the loudest source. And so if you have this really, really high and you engage the compressor, you might think, wow, that sounds incredible, it's so rich and lively. But that's just because it's maybe 10 dB louder than your original drum track. So keeping it constantly at the same level as the dry drums would be a good way to actually monitor what's going on. So you'll notice as I begin to lower the threshold, more compression will be taking place. You begin to see the kind of gain reduction meter just really get close to maxing out here. The key thing for parallel compression will be as I lower this attack, you'll begin to hear these transients just completely disappear. And that's what we want. We want those hits to be devoured so we can make space for the original drum track and just kind of surround it like I mentioned earlier. You'll begin to also notice that with a slow release, it's going to sound like the compressor is gasping. And I'm going to try to just move that as fast as can be so you can just really hear how it sounds all the way. And then I might lower it back a little bit and get just kind of a nice musical pumping out of there. So let's play it for you and you will hear how we set it up. Let's really push that ratio. Now let's go ahead and start eating these transients. Listen to the attack on that snare just kind of disappear. Checking the makeup gain. Let's kind of reduce that pumping a little bit. Now let's get more aggressive with the threshold. Yeah, now we're slamming this thing. Let's bring the volume back up here. And just for reference, before. And like I said, I'm gonna dial back the ratio just a little bit. And then I might dial back the release a little bit here. Give a nice little bit of a breath. Watching the makeup gain. And this is a really good starting point. I'm pretty happy with the way this is sounding. Okay, so now that we've got our compressor settings kind of vibing, we're really happy with the way it sounds, there's a second part to parallel compression that I feel like can get overlooked sometimes. Now this kind of technique is what's known as New York style compression. And I feel that it really makes a difference when you're actually using parallel compression as a production tool anyway. Now what this is like I said, kind of amplifying that idea of the parallel compressed track hugging the original and just kind of adding that lift and excitement. And what we're gonna do is using the A-Design's Hammer EQ. This thing is amazing, we love it. We're gonna do a pretty big boost in the low end and a pretty big boost in the high end. So if you're using a plug-in EQ, it would kind of look like a low shelf, dip down, and a high shelf. Now a dip, not as in a cut, just kind of leave it the way it is. And what this is gonna do is, like I said, this is gonna add to that dramatic surround sound effect you'll hear. So what I will do is I will adjust the low end to about 100. I'm gonna leave the mid-range alone, and I'm going to adjust the high frequencies at about 10K. 10 and 10. These are rough measurements, but this is kind of what most folks tend to start out with. Good low end, good high end, and just like I said, surrounding it. Mid-range is gonna be left alone, and for the video, I will probably boost them both all the way just to kind of dramatize the effect and what to listen for, but I'll also probably dial it back to about 6. You want it extreme, but you might not want it always extreme. Again, this is to taste. So, boom, boom. And I'm gonna record this again, and I'm gonna show you what it does in and out, and you're gonna hear the dramatic difference. So just another disclaimer here, and to echo what I was talking about earlier, when you are boosting these frequencies, you are going to be raising the volume of the track overall too. So again, it is going to be crucial for you to monitor your gain difference between your dry drum track and your parallel track, because yeah, I'm probably gonna dime out the top end here, and it's gonna sound, wow, that's really exciting, but it's going to be significantly louder. So just make sure if you have an attenuator on your EQ, or after the fact when you get into mixing, that you don't let that get to your head too much, and you are still listening critically. But here, we'll show you an example of how this sounds. Okay, so to recap, starting off with the dry drum signal, get that compression engaged, that really just kind of pumping, adding that kind of dramatic excitement. And now we're gonna add the lift and the hug. So we have the EQ out, and now it's in. And you really hear that air, but that's really not even brittle, even when this thing is dimed out. Out. Listen to the cymbals. Ready? In. One more time. And then back out. So like I said, I'm probably gonna dial this back a little bit, make it a little less extreme, right at about 6. And you'll still hear how dramatic this can be. So out, in. One more time, back in. And now we're ready to print and blend this in. So a couple things to listen for as we begin to fade in this parallel compressed track. You're gonna hear even how we just subtly tuck it into the mix, that the drums all of a sudden begin to carry a little bit more density, a little bit more weight, and a little bit more impact. I think most audibly what you'll hear is the lift in presence, especially in the high end and the low end as we boosted those intentionally. But the kit will just begin to sound larger than life and definitely have more power and momentum and excitement behind it. The interesting thing about this effect is it can make a really tight, close mic kit sound like it was recorded in the biggest room you can imagine, depending on how you have your settings. For reference, there are no room mics in this recording whatsoever. So just listen how the sound kind of evolves as we play with the fader positioning, and we'll check it out now. Okay, so here we are again with the straight unprocessed drum beat. And now let's slowly bring in the parallel track. So even tucked in there a little bit, you already are getting more power, more oomph. Listen to how it just really opens up the kit and the notes are kind of blooming more as the parallel track kind of surrounds it. Like I mentioned earlier, this sounds like it's recorded in a way livelier room. You can even get more extreme with it here. I love what it does to the cymbals. Here it is dry. And then together. Let's back it off a little bit, maybe a little less extreme. And again, for context, here is our parallel track. You really hear it just kind of pumping and breathing and creating a lot more of that movement, with that lift that you want out of the kit. And together, you kind of are just grooving to the beat of that kick drum that's really hitting you in the chest instead of just dry. Again, a straightforward beat, more power, more air. Now, if you want, you can really get dramatic with it and create some textures with this and even make the parallel track the dominant track. Because like I said, just the parallel track, you're losing all the transients, you're losing all that immediate hit, but when you bring in the dry track, it's right there up the middle, still giving you the punch you need. And everything just sounds fantastic here. So to recap, parallel compression is, I think, a fantastic tool that every audio engineer should have in his or her production toolkit. We just sort of scratched the surface in this overview here, but with experimentation, I think that you would find using parallel compression in your own mixes can really add a good amount of weight, density, impact, power, movement, and most crucially with that EQ, don't forget the EQ there, that lift that just surrounds your source, in this case drums, or whatever you throw at it here. And this isn't just limited to drums. You can use parallel compression on your master bus, on your vocals if you really just want to thicken them up a little bit. And another thing to stress too is just because this track runs in parallel, don't let that fader be static. Parallel compression can be a great tool to be automated. So in the verse of your song, leave it low, add a little bit of power, and then when the chorus hits, push that thing all the way up and just listen to your drums or your track just explode with life and excitement and just create contrast. Contrast is key to having a really impactful mix, and hopefully this can guide you there. If you have any questions about the gear that we use, the foot compressor, the hammer EQ, or any other pieces you may want to give this a try, definitely give us a call. We're always happy to go into detail about this. You can do this with plug-in or a vast array of hardware. And of course, we do have try before you buy on most of these pieces as well. So I'm happy to send you out one of these things to try in your own studio and hear how it works for you. As always, shoot us an email, give us a call, and we hope this is helpful, and we'll see you next time.